Scott Peck wrote that book, The Road Less Traveled, which was on the New York Times bestseller list for years. It was amazing. First thing he said was, life is painful, okay? Life has problems. Accept that. Don't be shocked if you have a problem. Don't think something's wrong if you're painful. One of the interesting things that I had never heard before when I read Mark Manson, that's the subtle art of don't giving a
F, yeah.
an F, right? Which is, if you can excuse the F's, if that's a problem for you, just ignore them. But his books are really interesting. But he talks about the feedback loop. People are unhappy that they're unhappy. What a mess that is.
Sure.
I wonder if you can keep going. I'm unhappy that I'm unhappy that I'm unhappy. You know, and he points that out. So we need to have that tolerance and low expectations of the world. As I think it was Peterson talked about the fact that just a few hundred years ago, we were starving, we were diseased, and we were ignorant. All right. And we're just beginning to wake up.
Well, we're not as diseased, we're not as starving as much, but we're still ignorant.
Yeah.
And I'm ignorant on certain things. You know, I have no clue about because I haven't experienced them. Oh, I could read a book and wax poetically about it, but I'd have no experience about it. So I'm ignorant on a lot of subjects or a lot of experiences I haven't had.
To me, you're not truly ignorant unless you think you know everything.
Well,
or you know everything about something and you don't. That's the real ignorance. To say, I don't know, I need to learn more about that, that's not really ignorance.
Which doesn't exist in today's politics, I believe.
Right,
on either side.
They're all experts.
Okay, yeah. And here's something else I wrote. Society traps us in a scarcity mindset. Then we seek safety nets such as relying on outside sources such as parents, the government. Fear is driving the whole machine. Do you think they're ever going to open a newscast and say, by the way, your survival rate at coronavirus is 98.7%. Chances are, don't worry about this. Hey, the economy, you know, unemployment has dropped, more jobs were filled. You think that's ever going to be? They're selling fear. They're selling scarcity. Yeah. That mindset is so damaging to America. It's why I say, do not turn on the news. I don't do it. Just don't do it.
You know, it's a little bit off the point, but sometimes I wonder, the government does all these things to make us afraid, says all these things. Are they really afraid of us?
Probably. They want to keep us at bay. I really believe that.
Yeah. And so I don't think we should ever feel powerless. I'm not saying exercising power would be easy. And I'm not saying that even exercising the power we have is always meaningful. All right. But they act like they're afraid of us. Because after all, they're just people like everybody else. There's nothing special about, they don't have any special genes or special abilities. Some of them are very subpar in many ways. Some of the leaders are very subpar in their ability to do things. All they know how to do is get elected. That's their primary skill.
Or be pushed by people who want them to be elected. What we've come to in this country, and maybe we always were, because I can't remember being around in the 17 and 1800s, was this a slow, slippery slope we went down, or were there peaks and valleys? I think there were peaks and valleys. But I think the good thing about the information age, or the internet, and I'm going to say something that's going to really upset people. I'll look at the camera. Your vote does not count. I just want you to know that. Because I've interviewed many politicians since I've been doing interviews since 1976, and what they told me off camera, they are bought and sold by corporations, by political action committees, they're entrapped by spending 40 to 60% of their time on the phone with big donors to get them reelected. The bills they sign off, they hardly ever, never read them. They have no idea what they contain. They're attached with so many pork barrel projects. and they do it themselves so they can go back to their constituents and say, I got this for us. Isn't it funny that they talk about what a great free country this is, but they saddle us with tremendous debt into trillions of dollars, and we've mortgaged our country.
Yeah, this circles back around to the same idea that in times ahead, it's going to be up to us to do the best we can. We can't rely on government. No. And unfortunately, now, when we say government, we're not just talking about the United States government. We're talking about all governments.
Oh, no, the world.
Right?
Yeah.
When things go bad, who does the government look out for? Government.
The government.
Yeah, they look out for themselves first. And that's just their nature. They're like a person. Persons look out for themselves first. The government sees itself as a unity. It looks out for itself.
It's an organism. And the organism feeds. And what does it feed on?
Yeah.
One of the worst things that ever happened to this country was getting off the gold standard and able to print money. Without this, the government could not have grown to the levels it's grown.
Right.
When we lost the Treasury, and then they just print that money, give us more money, give us more government, give us more government. Now I talk to people and they say, well, the government should handle that. The government should do that. Who do you think the government is?
Yeah. You know, we did a show or two on Scott Peterson's, is it not Scott, right? No, is it Scott?
Now, if you wouldn't ask me, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, anyway, Peterson. Who wrote the 12...
Jordan Peterson, thank you.
Peterson.
Hey.
Give it to the young guys. Good memory.
He has more memory cells. Ours through the 60s, we did lose some. I got to tell
you. He wrote this book, 12 Rules to Live By.
Yeah, exactly. Great book.
And what the thing that's interesting about that book is that one of the rules is not be responsible. Mm-hmm. But the fact of the matter is, if you follow the 12 rules, you are responsible. It's really kind of interesting. So, one of his things, and I think this is one of the best parts of the book, is he talks about the interplay of order and chaos. He talks about the interplay of structure and freedom. That there's a balance on all those things that we have to make out. In other words, he's trying to create a framework of rules to help you be responsible. Right? And people say, oh, I hate rules, we can't have rules. Trouble is, if you have no personal rules, you have chaos. You have no way of making decisions. You have no priorities. You have no values. Okay? So, his discussions of both of those are really marvelous. He talks about how chaos can lead to creativity and new ways to do things. But all chaos leads to destruction. Order is very good. It promotes stability. But if you have nothing but order, you have stagnation. So there's not like you're all one or you're the other. Right? No. You have to have an interplay of both of them. And really sort of saying structure and freedom is two words for saying the same thing. You know, chaos and freedom go together, and structure and the other goes together. So I think, you know, for a lot of folks, if they haven't read that book, it's great. And a lot of people have been very offended by that book and the things he says. You mean we're not victims? We can't blame other people for all our problems? They get very upset by that. But a lot of people have really enjoyed it. Because the other part for responsibility is you have to be able to find some meaning in your life. You have to have values, things that you pursue that are more important to you than other things. And that helps a lot. I remember Nietzsche said something like, if you have a why to live, you can put up with any how to live. And that's a big statement.
That's a nice statement. Yeah, it is.
And I mean, certainly the people, and there have been books written about people that were in prison camps during World War II. The ones that had all these rules about how they're supposed to be treated and their position in society and all that, those were the ones that died.
Yes.
Right? And the one that just said, I'm going to survive.
Max Planck was one of them. Yeah.
And they survived. They had no expectations of how they were going to be treated. They were going to survive whatever happened. And of course they didn't all survive. but most of the ones that did, that's what happened.
Well, and in talking about Jordan Peterson and the book, and it's so clear if you do read it and you're not attached to what you're reading, order versus chaos. Well, you've got to have some of both, and that does lead to creativity if done correctly. But if you have too much of either one, if you have too much order, or then are you living in a communist society where everything's decided? Or if you have too much chaos, then you're burning down cities, Portland, whatever. Mm-hmm. So too much of either one leads to destruction.
Right.
So
it's interesting. They lead to the same result. Right?
Yeah, they come to the same result. So you've got to explore this and find out for yourself, and quit looking to other people. And it comes to personal experience, self-reliance. Look, I don't think anyone needs to follow the 10 Commandments that you don't inherently know you shouldn't kill anyone or you shouldn't steal. 10 Commandments are wonderful, but we're born with this. You know from a child that's not a good thing. You don't beat up your playmate. I mean, you may try, but as you get older, you know you shouldn't kill. That's inherent in human nature, certain fairness. But then when we're told over and over, that person has more, that person does, but you've been held down because of it. What a color, society, cultural, caste system in India. Then as the resentment grows, you come to believe that's the truth, where it's not the truth.
You know, I've cut back like you have on looking at the news, and but I did catch that apparently there's a few libraries full of rules that are going to be coming out. And there's a saying in the law business, rule after rule only creates chaos, because no one knows how to apply the rules, what they really mean, and that kind of thing. But, you know, getting back to our original thing, I remember another thing, and that was the saying that a lawyer represents himself as a fool for a client.
Yes.
Everybody's heard, but if they don't really think about what that means. The reason why is because you're not objective. You can't just look at the problem and do the best thing to solve it. You have all these emotions coming into play. So what they're assuming is that a lawyer could not be objective about his own problems. He can't stand aside and just look at it as something to deal with. And I've represented myself a couple times as a lawyer. But I was careful about it. You know, because I kept that in mind, that what would I do if I was representing a client? I sort of asked myself that question.
Yeah, but you weren't up for murder.
Should I try to get even? Should I get even? You know, no. What's the best alternative? What's okay? And that sort of thing, and I would work it out from there.